Everything you watch, read, or listen to is manipulating your energy. You're being lied to about the world you live in. You're being lied to about your history. You're being lied to about who you really are. Question everything. Saw you on Occult Rejects, and when you were talking about the elongated skulls, and I was like, I got to do an episode on that. That's what I want to do next, man. And so I had you on the show today just to talk about elongated skulls and the red-haired giants. I want to kind of pick your brain on that, man, and see what you think of all this. I've had Mondo Gonzales on the show. I've had L.A. Marzulli, and we've talked about elongated skulls a little bit, but not as in depth. And I kind of wanted to get a better understanding of, I know there's certain things like cranial cranial formation. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, deformation.
Deformation. Yeah, I was going to say reformation, but that doesn't sound right. So, and then I think Mondo was telling me about, because I think I asked him, I said, first of all, they don't ever find any bodies with these skulls. They just find skulls, right? And it's like, I asked him, I said, are they typically attached to giants? And I think, if I remember correctly, he said that no, they're typically attached to these little short beings. Is that wrong? Am I wrong about, did I mishear that or something?
Yeah. Well, Mondo, he was one of the guys that went down with LA on one of his trips down there to Peru and study all these things. But I think what he was referring to is like the full bodies that we do have preserved to this day. A lot of them are, juveniles and infants. But Nick on the Occult Rejects, I think it was Cosmic Pete, she kind of asked the same question on the show, and she's like, what's the deal with the skulls? We only found the skulls. She said, so is it like a vampiristic thing, or that's how they thought that's the way you killed a giant? So they just chopped off their heads, and that's why we're finding all just heads. And but I told her that thanks to reading like Brian Forster's books, Brian lives down there. He's lived down there for a long time, so he's really immersed in the culture, knows the locals and the people and all that stuff. He talks about in his books, and once again, I might be mispronouncing this or saying it wrong, but hey, I'm close. But the grave robbers down there, they called them sicaras or something close to that. But they were grave robbers, and that's where we get 90% of our archaeological stuff from down there, because that's something that there's not science teams like we have in Europe or in America that's going through with brushes and trying to find all this stuff. So these grave robbers are going and digging and finding these grave sites, and it's very lucrative. A lot of money involved in it, especially you got rich people in America or Europe that want to collect these elongated skulls and high strangeness things. That these elongated skulls bring big money on the black market, so that's what they're interested in. So when they dig up a grave and they find the whole body's there, but the only thing they want is the head. So just break the head off and take off running with it and put it out on the black market. I think that's why we just have heads in so many instances, because it's from these sicaras, these grave robbers.
I saw this thing where they, like in Peru, basically every construction company digs up like these megalithic ruins and these graves and all this stuff on accident. It's like everywhere they dig, it's like 96% of everywhere they dig, they're going to find like these ancient graves of ancient peoples. And some of them do have those elongated skulls in them. So it's probably not even just grave robbers. It's probably just construction workers who are just coming across and like, hey, check this out, bro. And they're showing all their buddies and stuff like that. So Yeah, I just read that the other day, man. Peru is like loaded. Is there a reason for that? You mentioned Brian Forster. He talks about like the Path of Viracocha, right? Where it's like there's like a trail or something. I mean, I'm probably way off on this because I haven't looked into it too much, but there's like a trail that the giants had taken maybe after the Great Flood or something.
No, of course, I mean, we don't know, what we can speculate and look at, evidences and things and kind of put our puzzle pieces together and form a pretty educated guess. But I think, honestly, it was either the Great Flood, there might be a mixture of things, but I think a big flow of that is from what they call the Great Diaspora. When Joshua and Caleb was going into the Holy Land, this is where, God said, kill every man, woman, and child and animal, and all those tribes that they were told to do that were Nephilim Giant Tribes. So I think a lot of them, well, the smart ones anyway, seeing how fast they were taking out these giant tribes in these cities. They heard about Jericho, them just marching around the wall and blowing their trumpets, and the whole freaking walls of the cities come crumbling down. They just destroyed the Amalekites in the wilderness, and these guys were the fierce warriors of the Levant. Their name means the Bloodlickers. They were known sorcerers and shapeshifters, according to the ancient accounts. So the people higher north heard about this, and they're like, hell no, I ain't fighting these dudes. I ain't ready to die. I'm going to run. And that's what a lot of them did. They went farther north into Europe, into Russia, and then a lot of them were already known as great seafaring people, the Phoenicians. I think they sailed and went west. And what's crazy is, I can't remember the guy's full name, but he was what do you call it? Like a Danish or Swedish scientist, and his first name was Thor something. But he was on this same thought that where everybody talks about, no, we were isolationists. The people just stayed in their little spots and didn't go out and venture out. But the people that a lot of people thinks that we were sailing the seas long before Columbus and how everybody else thought. So he done this experiment that he thought that even if a lost ship, like a rowboat, lost its oars, or a sailboat that was just lost, that the currents and winds would naturally take them into the Caribbean islands or South America, the Gulf of America. So he just launched this little boat and just floated. And it took a little while, but he wound up right in the Caribbean islands and the Gulf of Mexico. So I think these Phoenicians and stuff were sailing, trying to run away from this, mass extinction war that was going on, and wound up in South America. And I think that's why we have such a smorgasbord and large amounts of these skulls there, because I think that's kind of where they first landed, and they spread out from there. But Peru gets all the attention, but I even made this little list when I went on with them guys because it kind of blew my mind. Here's a list of places that these elongated skulls are found. Of course, Peru, one famous guy's name was Julio Tello. He found over 300 elongated skulls in 1928 alone. But they're in Bolivia, Chile, Mexico, the United States, the Chinocan and Choctaw Indians were dug up and found to have elongated skulls. The Caribbean, Russia, France, Germany, Central Asia, China, the Middle East, Africa, Egypt, and even the Oceania region, Polynesia, Papua New Guinea, and one of them is called Vanuatu, where even head binding is still practiced today, and they say it's to resemble their cultural deities.
There's a lot of them in the Americas. I mean, there's allegedly in the Adena Mounds in Ohio, right, in the Ohio Valley, and there's obviously the ones in Peru. The Lovelock Cave, there was allegedly giants or skulls found there. And that's the Si Te Cah. Is that they call the red-haired Si Te Cah? And it's always like red-haired, white-skinned. There's always this lore. In Mesoamerica, in Mesopotamia too, dude. I mean, Mesopotamia, Ramses II had red hair. They discovered he had red hair and all that stuff as well. I heard something. I heard you mention or somebody mentioned something on the show that you were on with the Occult Rejects, that they said there is like a Stonehenge of the Americas, that they found the tablet. Is that correct? And it was talking about the Joshua and Caleb.
Roger Stone. He's the owner of America's Stonehenge up in New Hampshire, and as they were, because there's some caverns and little things that are collapsed there, and they was trying to, open them up and dig them out and see, what was in them and stuff. And one of the collapsed chambers that they had kind of pulled apart and got in there and got to looking, they found this huge slab of stone, but it had all this carvings and writings on it that they couldn't make out, didn't know what it was. And they were reaching out to all these different professors and stuff, trying to figure out what it was, and nobody knew what it was. But one of the people that they had reached out to was Professor Barry Fell from Harvard University. And he was fascinated with the giants and the lost history of America. He wrote books and stuff on it. When he seen it, he emailed them back and was like, yes, I'd like to come look at these things in person. He said, I think I know what they are. He said, but I don't want to speak and get, you guys excited or give any kind of false presumptions. I want to come see it in person before I, come out on a limb and say anything. And he went out and inspected them in person. And he said that it was just basically ancient Paleo-Phoenician writing. And he deciphered it. And it said, basically it said something along the lines of, we, the Canaanites, dedicate this site to Baal. And it's wild because I think a big portion of them, like I said, in the Great Diaspora, landed, in South America, in that Gulf of Mexico area, and a lot of them just settled there. And then we also have proof that there was a group of Phoenicians that came into like the New Hampshire area, and they speculate, people like Graham Hancock, like the Younger Dryas age and stuff like that, or shortly after that, the water levels were higher, and that you could take a path straight into the Great Lakes. And there at that Royal Isle Island, like it's right in between the United States and Canada, there's this huge copper mine, and it's like hundreds and hundreds of thousands or tons, I think, of copper missing. And it's tested like 98.8% pure, and it's the purest copper found in the world. So it's got a distinct marker. And so they found copper everywhere. I mean, seriously, everywhere. Europe, South America, the Levant, Mexico, everywhere. And it's testing at this 98.8% pure. So they know that this come from up there in Lake Michigan area. And they also found this huge rock that has this Phoenician ship carved into it. I mean, it's distinct. I mean, when they look at it, say, yeah, that's a Phoenician style ship. So these Phoenicians were even fueling the Bronze Age. And you find that stone with the Canaanite writing on it, dedicating to Baal, thanks to Fritz Zimmerman and his studies on the mounds and stuff. A lot of these mounds and hinges line up to Baal Tane, which is May the 1st. I mean, 2 and 2 makes 4 usually.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. I mean, even Phoenicia, Phoenix, that's where, we get the phonetic language from as well, which I think is word magic. And I think that it's interesting, like the Phoenician region was where Tyre was, and the king of Tyre was Hiram, right? King Hiram.
There was a physical king, of Hiram and things like that. But when you get into Ezekiel 28, that's a condemnation to the king of Tyre. And he comes out and physically, condemns, this fleshly king, but like halfway through the wording changes. And it's no longer talking to a human, it's talking to a spiritual entity, and it's Lucifer. It says that you were in the Garden of Eden and perfect in all your ways until iniquity was found in you, and every precious stone was your covering, and names all the stones of the priestly ephod. And it said, but you was cast from the mountain of God as a profane thing, and you were an anointed guardian cherub. So I mean, that tells you right there, they ain't talking about this king anymore. So I think that it was kind of like the whole Deuteronomy 32 thing, the sons of God that was given dominion over the nations. He divided up, the lands and the peoples as an inheritance to his children. And according to like Psalms 82, it says, how long will you rule unjustly? You show partiality to the wicked. You desire to live an eternal life, but you shall die and fall like any prince. So I think that's what it was. It's like this, either Satan or a Satan-like figure was like over the Tyre region and kind of pulling the strings of this leader, and like as a proxy, whispering in his ear and then kind of influencing him. And like this prophet was calling that entity out.
Like Baal. It could have been Baal, right?
Many names, yeah.
So, so it's interesting when you look at, like, again, because you mentioned the names of places. I mean, the names of places in the United States, it's like, where did they come from? We have all these crazy spots around the United States, and they have very strange names that sound like, I've heard like Utah could be Judah because of the way it's pronounced and said and everything. It's like, it's very interesting when you start uncovering all this. And it's like, you mentioned that Josh and Caleb kind of was like fighting all these things off or whatever, right? But it's like, what if they just fled after the flood? What if the flood washed them all away, and then some of them made their way into the Americas, and that was the only land they could inhabit? Like New Zealand, for example, there's like one of the tallest places in the world is in New Zealand. One of the tallest mountains in the world is in New Zealand, and so it would be enough to get away from a flood. And that isn't that the region that these red-haired giants inhabited? Is the New Zealand, Easter Islands, Peru? It's like a triangle, right? Even the Catalina Islands, which is northwest, they've found red-haired giants bones with red hair as well in that area. So it's like that whole region must have been a spot for them to seek refuge at and kind of try to make life happen again. And their numbers were probably too small to continue repopulating to the numbers that they had before. And I think that was intentional. I think God, probably washed these things out. Because in my mind, the red-haired giants, these were all the Nephilim. They were white-skinned and red hair and all this stuff, just like Paul Stobbs talks about. Obviously, a lot of people talk about as well, but Paul has a great book about. So it's interesting, man. I feel like they fled this. And there's still stories of the Allegewi, who are these giants that lived in the mountains in Pennsylvania, Ohio, those regions in the Appalachian Mountains. Am I saying that right? Appalachia or Appalachia?
I'm a redneck, but we say Appalachia.
Appalachia. Well, you guys know better than I do. We got some towns in South Carolina that are like only South Carolinians know how to pronounce the names of, so. But yeah, there's, so then the Allegewi lived and by the way, shout out to Freddie Silva for tipping me off to this kind of stuff, because I didn't know about that. And he was like, well, about the Allegewi, and that's where they get the name Allegheny National Forest and the Allegheny River from, and all that stuff was the Allegewi, which were the red-haired giants that used to live in that region. And they would fortify themselves and have all this research, man, that I could go through, but it's in the interest of time, I probably wouldn't go through it. But they're talked about as like this people that were dying to survive. They couldn't repopulate fast enough or something along those lines, and so they were dying off. And so they started trying to repopulate with human women. They were they were successful in. They weren't successful in the Allegheny area. They were successful a little bit in the Paracas area, right in the Easter Island area. The Maori people. And I'm going to jack the name up, but it's called pah-too-pie-ah-reh-heh. That's a long name, but that's what they were. They were these fairies that lived in the mountains, in the misty areas is what they call it. And they would mate with Maori people of Easter Island or in that region. And they created a race of people called the Urukehu. And the Urukehu still exist today. Or some of them still exist today, and they have like allegedly have this giant bloodline in them. So it's interesting, man, how they all kind of shifted to the Americas in a way. Maybe they were in the Middle East, or maybe they were maybe the continents were connected all at some point, like a Pangea.
That's what I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. Because if you look at, there's people, by the way, who haven't been taught. Or they don't look at South America and Africa and how they match up perfectly, or the coast of United States looks just like it broke away from South America or from Africa. So maybe it was just a giant continent that had all these things on it. And I think America is full of mounds and pyramids and all this stuff. And you and I are doing the same thing. We're going out and we're examining some of these places. And I just did a trip to Wyoming, dude. And I'm telling you now, those are not mountains in Wyoming. There's a lot of places. There are a lot of mountains in Wyoming. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of places that look like just like pyramids. I mean, they're pretty obviously pyramids, and nobody's talking about it. I mean, even my wife is like, "Nah, that's just." And I asked my son, I was like, "Is that like a pyramid?" And he was like, "Yeah, this looks exactly like a pyramid." But my wife, who's very like, "No, science and education tells us this," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, that's definitely a pyramid." And I took a bunch of pictures and it was like everywhere I turned, there was another one and another one and another one. So I think that the history of the world is very unique, and I think that our governments are kind of hiding this information from us. Maybe because they're afraid that another cataclysm type of thing is going to happen. Maybe they're afraid of us interacting with these portal type of areas to get forbidden knowledge. I don't know, but it seems like they're definitely keeping this information away from us for some reason, for some big reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And how you had mentioned earlier that the Path of Viracocha, that's something that really fascinated me, and I found that through Brian Forrester's work. And like you had talked about, we either had this cataclysmic event and this race of giants, these hybrid beings that were survived, they got spread across the nations and stuff. And then you have this Great Diaspora, I think, happened also. But the legends of Viracocha and Quetzalcoatl are mirrored images of each other, and I find that fascinating how it matches with the whole Great Diaspora, that these Phoenicians, got on their boats, and the natural wind and currents of the ocean leads you right to this area anyway. And the legend of Viracocha specifically, it says that he arrives on a boat of serpents without paddles. So a natural current or wind took him here. And he shows up with a group of people, like his disciples, basically, and they're called the Viracochans. And they were described as pale-skinned, red-haired, long beards, and even elongated skulls. And that they get off and they're worshipped as gods. They do just like the Book of Enoch says, that the fallen angels came down and they gave them the 7 sacred sciences, taught them forbidden, knowledge. It said that Viracocha and his Viracochans civilized the people there, taught them to be peaceful, not fight each other, and to how to grow crops and their seasons, and how to build these megalithic structures and all this stuff. And the cities that the legend gives, it follows like a northwestern path across the continent. And when you follow that path of Viracocha, all those cities listed without fail every single time at those cities is huge megalithic structures and elongated skulls out the wazoo. And then he leaves after he civilized the continent. But as he leaves, he tells them that one day he'll return. And so to be prepared, basically. And that's why when the Spaniards show up, they show up on these large boats. They're pale skin, big long beards. They're wearing this metal armor, probably glistening and glowing in the sun. They thought that this was the return of Viracocha and the Viracochans. And so they welcomed them with open arms, gave them gifts and food and women and gold and silver, and all these conquistadors was like, hell, we'll just go along with whatever they're doing here because they're just giving us everything. We won't have to risk any of our men or anything. And then once they, kind of caught on to the ruse, they started fighting them back. But at that point, they were done so far deep into the territory and had so many people there. I mean, that's why they took over the continent like they did. And but there's conquistadors and explorers, Spanish explorers, they found in their journals and documents that when they got there was a group of people that were natives, but they were taller than the other people. They were pale-skinned, red-haired, and had elongated skulls. And that the Spaniards asked, the locals, the dark-skinned people that couldn't grow facial hair and was shorter, hey, who are these people? and they're like, oh, this is the descendants of the Viracocha. So, I mean, they tell you right there that they're descendants of these people.
Yeah, some of them, but I mean, didn't L.A. and Mondo, didn't they discover that their blood types were different when they studied these skulls? Didn't they do DNA tests on these skulls and determine that they were like most of Native Americans are like they have an O blood type, and all these skulls had A and AB negative or A and AB blood types. Is that
which the ones they tested, of course they didn't test them all, but they tested a handful of them. But as far as like tracing the lineages, I'm not familiar with the blood types, but the lineages all go back to the east.
To Eurasia, right?
They say that it's European and the Levant. They say it's more predominantly Middle Eastern and the Levant, but it's like a mixture of European and the Levant. So it's kind of like, this Great Diaspora, maybe if we're talking about this event, that they went north for a while and interbred with the people of Europe, and then maybe got on a boat and then went out east and went out this way. But a lot of scientists, and I'm so glad that Dr. Judd and Aaron Judkins and L.A. and Mondo and all them guys went down there and actually studied these things and did what they did, because a lot of them just want to say, oh, well, this is headboarding, this is head binding, it's natural. And it's like, well, why? Okay, yeah, I am disagreeing, some of them are, but why would they do this? Because they're venerating these Viracocha, these people that they thought were gods. I mean, why would you go through this pain and suffering, strapping boards and ropes to your head, constantly tightening them for 10 years to get this deformation? I mean, it had to be important. And some of them, thanks to their studies, they know is not from head binding. And I brought Ed the head to kind of show off here, but this is one of the juvenile skulls that they found in Paracas, and that L.A. and Mondo and all these guys held and studied and measured. And they brought optometrists with them and everything to study this guy. It has no Sadra Sutra. And all the ones they found from head binding still have that Sadra Sutra. It doesn't change that. And then another thing is the mounting point of the head. Here's where the Magnus Foramen, this is where the spine mounts to the head. Well, if you look up a normal human skull, or even the ones deemed from head binding, this anchor point is here. It's all the way here in the center because it's for balance. But this extra long, elongated head, it's mounted here. That way it can counterbalance and be looking forward. Because if it was at that other spot here in the center, they'd be looking up at the sky all the time. So that shows you that head binding didn't change this anchor point, that this is genetic. It's programmed in. The head binding still had their Sadra Sutra lines, so therefore it's programmed in.
Is that real?
It's a casting, but it's a replica.
Okay. I was going to say, that's pretty cool, dude.
Yeah. The eye orbits, the elongated skulls doesn't change the size of the eye orbits. These that they found that were, a hybrid race, natural, they're 25 to 30% larger. And so the optometrist said, well, they're 25 to 30% larger, so the pupils would have been the same, bigger, and that even the distance here is closer. So it's built like a night predatory animal, like an owl. So he speculated that he thinks it's a high likelihood that these things had night vision, and that goes along with all of your giant lore. They like to be they were cave dwellers. The Si Te Cah that you mentioned earlier, and I can't remember the names of them now, but I could look it up and find it for you. But there's sets of holes that every skull has, and there's like two here, and then the mandible. There was two at one side of the lower jaw, two on the other. So all those are universal. But these elongated skulls that they found that were natural, that had all these distinctive markers that I was talking about, have an extra set of two here that normal human skulls don't have. Even the ones from head binding don't have. And these holes are where nerve endings and blood vessels go through your skull. And so the doctor that found that speculated that, this was natural, obviously. He said, so the only thing that he could conclude was that this was an extra set of holes for nerve endings and blood vessels to carry blood flow to the back of this head that was elongated to have proper blood flow, because it was programmed in the DNA because it was born this way.
Interesting, dude. I'll read you something real quick. I read about the, I'm going to try to say it again. Pah-too-pie-ah-reh-heh. Okay. That's the red-haired giants that inhabited the Easter Island, New Zealand, Peru, or the Paracas area. So this is what it says. It says the pah-too-pie-ah-reh-heh are a mythical race in Maori lore. They're fair-skinned with red or fair hair. They live in mist-shrouded forests or mountain peaks. They're often depicted as elusive, nocturnal beings with a strong aversion to sunlight, fire, and cooked food. And basically, they were saying like they only eat basically they're carnivores. They eat humans and all this other stuff. And so these are the same ones that basically were mating. They would come down and they would mate with the Maori people, and they created that Urukehu race. And the Urukehu, okay, is very interesting because I had to look this up real quick because I'm going to get it wrong because I'm a dum-dum. I was looking at where the region that they might have come from, and it's the Caucasus Mountains near Armenia. And a lot of people think Armenia is like the cradle of civilization. They really think that Armenia was where, not Sumeria, although Sumeria there's a lot of overlap, but Sumeria they had a city called Uruk, right? And then the Armenia had a kingdom of Urartu. So their language was very same. Yeah. And their language was very similar, and that you are at the beginning, the Urukehu, right? It's like maybe they shifted after some kind of a devastation in the Armenian region, and they shifted over to that, over to the Americas. So that's pretty interesting. A lot of this stuff tracks, it ties in. And again, if you look at like King Ramses II from, like I said, from Egypt, he had red hair. He had sort of kind of an elongated skull. It wasn't like the one you just showed me, but it was sort of, like I guess a lesser version of it. Yeah. Or like Nefertiti.
Yeah. And what's his name? Shoot. King Tut had an elongated head. What was his father? Akhenaten. He was definitely depicted with an elongated head, and a lot of people speculate that those hats, covered that head. Why was it shaped like that? Of course, that's speculation, but you ain't speculating with Akhenaten, because his depictions in those drawings and carvings, he don't have the hat on, and that thing's elongated as can be. And then his wife is also depicted with no hat on, with this elongated head, and one of them, she's even holding the elongated head baby, breastfeeding it. So, I mean, you have that stuff everywhere.
Yeah, and see, people think that Nefertiti, like the word Nefer, like the word Nephilim, they think it's the word Nephal. I actually think it's like Nefer, as in Nephilim. Like I don't think that. So when you think of Nefertiti, the word Nefer, like in my opinion, is that race of, the people with the long heads and stuff like that, which again ties into the Nephilim. So yeah, man, there's that, there's this mythology that the Atlanteans, that they were the Atlanteans. Like they were considered the Atlanteans because they had all this information about future, how to use electromagnetic energy, and all this stuff. And they were teaching it to, the Mayans, I believe, are even called, the word Mayan in Egypt is water people, I believe. So like, so then you have something that's like, were they the Mayans as well? Were they the Atlanteans? Were they the Olmecs? Were they all this civilization that spread out? Or were they all here on the earth in one area? God flooded them, and then the continent split, and that's now it just seems...
Yeah. They're all pieces of that puzzle, that remnant of people. And to me, that makes sense, because I always took the opinion that Atlantis was an allegory for the pre-flood world. the pre-flood world was the golden age, when the gods walked amongst men. When the angels came down and bred with the daughters of men and made this, demigods like Hercules, Perseus, and all these legends talk about. And these were the giants. And they gave them the secrets of heaven, the forbidden knowledge. So therefore they had high technology and pharmakia and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's an Atlantis-style world. I always took that as an allegory for the pre-flood world. Then here comes the flood, the destruction to knock it out and knock them out of the golden age. Like hit the reset button.
That's kind of how I take it too. Like God did this intentionally. And you can see that. That's why a lot of these coastlines are like blurred out on Google Maps and Google Earth. Like if you go to Google Earth and you try to look at coastlines around the world, all of it's blurred out, just like Antarctica's blurred out. And I think the reason for that is because like right off the coast of Louisiana, there's pyramids underneath the ocean, right? It's like, people aren't talking about the pyramids off the coast of Japan and all these other places. There's a place in Egypt that they discovered that this guy has been working to try to get the governments and help with for like 40 years. And he discovered like all these ancient ruins. And Egypt keeps ignoring it, basically. He's like, nah, they're like, no, it doesn't exist, And I think that there seems to be some kind of a knowledge that, because I think our government's doing that with like national forests and stuff, right? I think they're covering all this stuff up right now and saying,
and
like
the Native American Act, you can't dig into the mounds because they're natives, But yeah, I think that the people, the powers that be, know of this lost civilization. But at the same time, it's like it could be a mixture of things. It could be that they found some of this remnant of this ancient technology and they're trying to keep it to themselves, or they're in the process of trying to reverse engineer it and figure it out. So they're keeping the public away from it until they figure it out or extract what they want from it. And then at the same time, it confirms the biblical narrative. So therefore, I mean, they can't go with that.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, I feel like there's probably a faction of the government who's trying to keep us away from these sites, these portals and places that where you could go interact with these currents, with these electromagnetic energies, which is funny because this is where the idea for caduceus comes from, the medical symbol. Like Arthur and Merlin were using these sacred sites, like these stone circles and places like that, to heal people. And so what they were doing, they were going to these places and they looked like wizards because they were getting all this information, this download of information from the serpent energy. The serpent energy is the telluric currents that swirl around in this area. You mentioned the currents that took them to South America, right? Those currents are flowing and they're kind of encircled and trapped in these portal areas. And this is where they interacted with those fallen entities. This is where they got information for the forbidden knowledge and all this stuff. And so I think that our government probably knows that happened. Like that's where because Stonehenge was intentionally destroyed at some point, and so was Göbekli Tepe. It was covered up intentionally with different kinds of dirt and all this stuff. So I feel like our governments probably know, and there's a faction that's keeping us away from it. But you're right. I think that there's also a faction that's probably working with these things too, and like getting advanced knowledge and technologies and all this stuff, and that we're trading human, we're letting them abduct humans and stuff like that to create this hybrid race of beings that are trying to inhabit the earth. Because just like I said, what I just read with the, and I'm not going to try to say it again, the pah-too-pie-ah-reh-heh, they are afraid of light. And what is light? Light is God. God is light, right? They have an aversion to sunlight and fire and cooked food, because they're bloodthirsty, they're bloodthirsty nocturnal beings that are reptilian-like, So, anyways, that was long-winded, but I do feel like
I
that
think
there
you're
are.
right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, I just think that you're right about that. There's definitely more to it, that they're probably trying to reverse engineer some things. They try to get information and all this stuff, and they're intentionally keeping us out of these places like the national forests and stuff like that. And you can't dig here and you can't do that because they don't want you to rediscover these places and access this information on your own. I really believe that. especially after going to some of these places, and not only going to some, but discovering some of these places on my own without any kind of map, Google map taking me there or anything like that, just stumbling across them in the woods, that kind of stuff. That's what the guys from the Appalachian Intelligence did with that giant pyramid thing they found in the woods, right? They just kind of stumbled on it and they're like, what the heck is this? And I feel like there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, and United States is totally unexplored, or at least like, people just kind of think, oh, because of what we've been taught in school, that everything happened in the Middle East and nothing happened in the United States at all. That's asinine to me, that nothing happened in the United States at all. And like you just mentioned copper, like gopher wood, isn't it found in Florida? Isn't it like one of the only places you can get gopher wood that they built the ark with?
I think I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, so there was much more going on in the United States than what they are telling us. And there's a place in Montana that I was really wanting to go to when I was in Wyoming, but it was like another 4-hour drive away, and it's called Sage Wall. And it's this megalithic structure that's just like Peru. And it's right on that line that you're talking about, that Path of Viracocha kind of thing. I think that's what you're talking about, right? It goes right through that from Peru on up through the Americas. Is that correct?
Let me see. I got it right here. I don't want to misquote. I'll just pull it up. Path of Viracocha. There it is. Okay. It goes to like the northwestern tip of the continent. So it's probably like before you get into Mexico and Panama and all that stuff, it kind of cuts that away. But those people that got this knowledge, I mean, I don't think it'd be out of the question that they ventured farther north and took some of the building practices and stuff with them. One thing that's really cool is which I recorded it almost 2 years ago now. I need to put the stuff together. But I went to Serpent Mound in Ohio and done some filming there and got some drone footage and talked to some of the locals. And one of them was an Indian woman, and she was married to this guy who was a geologist. They had this rock shop, and they were really cool. But I talked to them, and they turned me on to a lot of cool out-of-the-box ideas. And they were even saying that a lot of people think this is a serpent eating an egg. And he said, but people fail to realize that what you're seeing now at Serpent Mound is a reconstruction of what they thought it looked like. That the original guy, I can't remember his name now, but when he found it and drew his drawings and stuff, it was pretty much, it was decayed a lot and broken down. It wasn't upkept. And they showed some of those other drawings, and there was little mounds and like little like legs looked like coming off of this round looking egg thing originally, and that they tried to reconstruct it and rebuild it to what they thought it looked like, and that's how it got this image now. But they done like thermal imaging of it, and you can even see like the ground disturbed in these places, and it looks like legs kind of branching off at the front and in the back, and then at this egg at the front of it, there's like this little pyramid, basically this little knot at the front. And so he was saying that the natives believed that this was originally a snake eating a turtle, and that they called North America Turtle Island, and that this is the Great Serpent Quetzalcoatl, or Amaru. Some people think that's how America was named. Amaru was this serpent, the land of the serpent. But how Mexico looks like this, serpent tail coming up into the North America Turtle Island, and that they were saying that this is the people of South America, Mexico, traveling north with their god Quetzalcoatl with them, and they were devouring Turtle Island, taking over Turtle Island. And that's how a lot of the culture came, and especially the growing of corn. That corn wasn't something that was indigenous originally, they theorized, to North America, that it was a South American and Mexican thing, and that there was legends and stories, mythology about Quetzalcoatl and growing the corn and the harvest seasons and all this kind of stuff, so that when they traveled north into America, they brought with them their god, their legends and mythology of their god, and also the corn and the seasons and growing of corn.
Yeah, this place is way more interesting than what they teach us. And dude, I mean, how cool would school be? How cool would church be if we could learn these kind of things in church and school? I mean, it would be awesome, dude. If you could, it's like a Harry Potter book. It's like a, Star Wars movie. It's like all the things,
Put
all the
Marvel
cool
comic book to shame.
Yeah, I know, right? It would. And it's just a shame that we have to kind of find this knowledge on our own. And I think they're getting to a point where they're having to acknowledge a lot of this stuff. It's just a shame that we aren't being taught this kind of stuff, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then the picture is becoming a little bit clearer every time I talk to guys like you or Freddie Silva or whoever, that, yeah, this was a civilization that was like global, or at least on one continent, a Pangea-like continent maybe. And then it was all fractured somehow by some great earthquake or great flood, or great earthquake that caused a great flood, or whatever you want to call it. And then it kind of dispersed everybody all around the world. That's just at least my theory. I mean, there's biblical accounts of, like you said, Joshua and Caleb. I don't doubt that was probably going on too. It could be a mixture
of both. I mean, I'm a firm believer. Yeah. It's not this. Some people say, oh, it's this, and other people, oh, it's that. I'm a firm believer. It's usually this and that. It's a mixture of the things.
Yeah, and it's pretty, it's pretty obvious that there's a lot of cross comparisons to these different places. The giants and the Allegewi giants, and I'm wrapping it up, and I gotta go. But the Allegewi and the Ohio Valley, I mean, they had like, they were giants that had these fortified towns. And it overlapped in different regions, and their populations were dying off, and there was wars happening between local tribes and stuff like that, trying to fight them out. So maybe even the Native Americans were working with Joshua and Caleb to fight these things off, because it seems like
even
they wouldn't
inadvertent way, even if it was inadvertent, it was just that these giants were devouring the land and raping their women, trying to, they had this reproduction problem, so therefore they were trying to interbreed, and that's how you kind of get the killing off of the DNA strand. They got shorter over time because of this interbreeding and the polluting of the bloodline. So you get all these legends that these North Americans finally just got fed up, and they banded together to push out and exterminate these giants.
Yeah, and then they kind of went down. They started going into the mountains and into the oceans and trying to find ways to live there. And now it seems like with the Great Act of 1952 or 54 or whatever, with allegedly, with Eisenhower, they are allowed to take humans, abduct them, and try to create these hybrid races. And I really think that that's happening. And all that ties into all the stuff that L.A. Marzulli is always talking about, with like exsanguination and mutilation of cows and stuff like that. They're taking their reproductive organs,
artificial wombs, and
creating artificial wombs and all this stuff. So all of it's connected, dude. And again, if you know that as a Christian, then you wield that sword, because you know this knowledge, and you can easily tell these things to disappear by using the name of Christ, saying the name of Jesus or Christ, and which is the embodiment of light, which, like I said, they don't like light, they don't like fire, they don't like food, it disperses them, right? So, but knowing that is powerful. And again, man, we just have to keep beating that drum about this and letting people know that you can fight against these things. You don't have to succumb to the forbidden knowledge that they're trying to teach us with technologies and medicines and all this stuff. I really believe that we are getting sick. I don't think it's real sicknesses. I mean, I'm sick right now, but I don't think it's like a sickness like that really exists. I think it's something that is created. It's almost like an egregore. Like, if they said it enough times in 2020, you're going to lose your taste and you're going to lose your smell and all this stuff, and people believed it, and so it created like this egregore that made them think that. So I think we're in a battle of frequency. I think we're in a battle of energy. I really believe that it's a negative energy versus a positive energy, and if you lean towards the positive, that's the way to you're going far away from these things. You're leaning on the side of light and love. And these things can't attach themselves to you because they're a slow vibration and a slow energy. So I think the more people know that stuff, man, the better off they'll be. But
it's ammo.
I didn't mean to keep you on for 2 hours, dude. But I guess we should go ahead and wrap it up. Just let everyone know where they can find you at one more time. I know you're going to be I'm going to post this episode this week. I know you're going to be going to Spiracy Con this week. And honestly, dude, I really and truthfully thought about just driving up there because it's like 6 hours, 7 hours away from where I live. So I thought about going. I told my wife, I might go. I don't know yet, but you might see me, you might not. I don't know. It just depends on how I feel. But yeah, tell everyone where they can find you at, man, and all the events you got coming up and all, where they can buy your book and all the above.
Okay, man. I appreciate you having me. Like I said, I always love having conversations with open-minded people and researchers, and you're definitely one of those, Brad. But yeah, man, Prometheus Lens podcast. Don't just say Prometheus Lens, because it'll pull up a really popular video game back in the day called Destiny, and one of the guns there. So Prometheus Lens podcast. Anywhere you can consume content, you can find me. Website is PrometheusLensPodcast.com. It's actually newly renovated, given a facelift. Got a newsletter and stuff now. You can watch my YouTube straight from the website and go listen to my episodes straight from the website. It auto updates every week. That newsletter, if you sign up for that, you get kind of updates on the show, events that I'm going to, and things like that. If you do sign up for that, we offer 3 chapters of my book for free and a 30-day ad-free listening experience through Supercast, if that interests you. But yeah, I just come back from a Bigfoot conference in Middle Tennessee this last weekend, and next weekend I'm going to Cave City, Kentucky, to Spiracy Con. Go to Spiracy, SPIRACYCON.com if you want to get a ticket. John Pounders from Now You See TV is putting that on. When you go to that website and look at it, as a banger of a lineup. It's a star-studded lineup of some of your favorite content creators and podcasters there. A whole weekend, 2 days, from sun up to sundown. They're open at like 8 a.m. and they're not shutting the doors till like 9 p.m. So it's going to be just an awesome jam-packed weekend. If you are in the area, definitely come check it out, man. You will not regret it whatsoever. And Brad, yes, you need to come. It's only like 4 hours away from me. I'm driving down. And actually, I got 3 buddies we've pitched in on a Airbnb. So you need to come over to hang out, even maybe some after hours, man. But I'm trying to think. Riley from Midwest Mythos, he's coming down from like Illinois. Steven from Biblical Hitman, he's flying up Thursday. I'm going to pick him up in Asheville, and we're going to drive up there together. So, yeah, dude, come by and hang out, man.
I appreciate it, man. And I just wanted to say, I heard you did a live on Instagram talking about running into a friend of yours just on happenstance, turning down a random road headed towards Middle Tennessee, right? Can you just tell that real quick before we get out of here, dude? Because I think that's important for people to understand, that when you're open to hearing where God needs you to go and you make the right turns, you always end up where you need to be to see somebody or to see something. I think it's a good testimonial to share on the show, because I always talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, man, it was amazing. And I even said on my Instagram page that this is what I consider a divine appointment. Now, I had a best friend, man. We were like the yin and the yang. We were always together, man. And his name was Brad. But from like second grade all the way to like our mid-20s, best of friends, man. We was always together, getting in and out of trouble together, and all this kind of stuff. But he had moved off to West Tennessee, like in my mid-20s, and we kind of just lost contact. We were friends on Facebook, but he was one of those guys that never got on Facebook, never got on social media, never posted, but we were friends on social media. But we hadn't talked. And I was heading to Middle Tennessee for this conference. It was Saturday morning, the conference was, so I drove up late Friday night, and I was headed to this hotel to sleep it off and then go there the next morning. And navigation, man, it could have took me any route, to this destination I was going to, but it took me to this little small town called Sparta, and took me down these little back roads. Sometimes navigation takes you to just crazy places, and you're like, why did it take me this way? And so as I was going down through there, like I said, it was 10 o'clock at night. And it said, turn left here. And I went to turn left, and my headlights shined on this corner. And there was this guy and this girl walking a dog standing there at the corner. And as soon as the headlights hit him, I was like, it clicked. I was like, man, that looks like my buddy Brad. And I was like, shit, that can't be. No, I mean, what are the chances, man? What are the chances? No, that ain't him. That's just like his doppelganger. And I tried to, I almost turned around and I talked myself out of it. I was like, no, it probably ain't him, dude. What are the chances of that? That's like 1 in 10 billion, probably. He might not even live in Middle Tennessee no more. He might have moved out further into another state. And so I talked myself out of it. But then I just had like this little voice in the back of my head. It's like, well, try to message him on Facebook. And I was like, man, he never posts on Facebook. I mean, it's probably a dead account. And just something kept nagging at me. So I did. I messaged and said, hey, man, you don't happen to live in a little town called Sparta, do you? And you wouldn't happen to be walking your dog with a woman at 10 o'clock at night, huh? And honestly, it was like 10 minutes later, maybe, I got a message back and said, yeah, LOL. Did you just come by? And I was like, yeah, dude. I said, I just come by. I'm heading to a conference out here in McMinnville. I said, and navigation took me right down that street. And I said, I thought I saw you, man. I said, I didn't know if it was you or not, but it looked an awful lot like you. And we talked on the phone, man, for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes as I was driving to the hotel. And he ended up coming to the conference and hanging out. And so I even said in the post, I'm like, man, it's a divine appointment. Out of all the roads I could have took, I think God pointed me that way. And out of all the times that he could have walked that dog, I think God prompted him to go at 10 o'clock at night just so our paths would cross again, man. It was pretty amazing.
It is amazing, man. And not to dilute from that story, but I went all the way to Wyoming from South Carolina, where I'm at, drove 30 hours one way, 30 hours back, head over lakes and valleys and rivers and mountains and all this other shit. And then I get there to a rodeo and I run into my neighbor from my neighborhood, literally in Wyoming. Like, what are the chances of that happening? What are the chances of you running into your friend? I mean, it just has to be something to that. And I think it's important to say that, and I think it's important to share that story for you to share that story, because I think that that's true, man. When you just let life happen to you and you think about it, you got a million other things you could do. You didn't have to go. It's not really a huge benefit to you to go to a conference and go to an event and to go to all these places. You're not going to get so much stuff out of it that it's like totally worth it. It's just cool to go to kind of places. And when you let life just happen to you, and when you let God guide you and let the Holy Spirit guide you, man, He always takes you in the direction that you need to go. And you always need to stop where you need to stop. You always need to see who you need to see. And you always need to reconnect with somebody that maybe God's trying to point at something and say, hey, he needs you and you need him right now or something. I think that's an incredible story, man. And I love that kind of stuff. I love hearing those kind of things because not a lot of people pay any attention to stuff. They just go, oh, what a coincidence. And it's like, is it just a coincidence? That seems pretty freaking divine, dude.
Yeah, man.
Like, how does that happen every day where you're just going through a random town? And I think it happens to a lot of people. They just don't always talk about it. So I'm glad that you share that story. But listen, dude, hopefully I'll see you up there this weekend. And, again, thank you for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it. As always, this was kind of like an impromptu last minute, hey, come on the show. It wasn't really planned. Sometimes I just go where the heart leads me. And the heart was telling me to talk about elongated skulls and giants and things like that. So I'm happy that you could join me, man. Thank you again for coming on.
No, I appreciate it, brother.
Me in the right direction. God send me your blessing. I'm so tired of stressing. This music's turned to obsession. I got a long way to go to ease my pain. My clothes soaking wet, makes me sweat and the rain. Going half insane. Wishing I could change all my mistakes, but y'all be half gone if all y'all had seen the things that I saw. Hallucinating from the alcohol, hoping I can stop I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to sell my soul. Now I'm sitting back thinking about the memories. Now I don't know who's a friend to me. These people act like they can to me. Well, that's still a mystery. A mystery. Devil wants me to lose my religion, but I won't stop, not without a fight. I won't give it, won't give it. So I'm gonna sit down right here and pray and ask the Lord above to help me change my way. Today the world's filled with greed, envy, and hate. You're moving too fast, apply pressure to the brake. You can love me or hate, I'll bend but don't break. I'm at the crossroads trying to find my way. Can you help me? Oh, can you help me? Oh, well, I'm standing at the crossroads.